down, so we will be underway very soon here.
And away we go. Just let that delay catch up a little bit, and then we should be ready to start this clown fiesta.
Yep, so as we're starting here, let's talk about a little bit about their PBs. So Kirefel having a PB of a mid 40, I believe it's a 44 and change. So definitely going to be interesting to see how he approaches this race against Vulajin, who is pretty significantly the favorite here.
He's certainly been around quite a bit longer. At the moment, like Richard just mentioned with the PBs, Vulajin's PB approximately 10 minutes faster. I didn't do the math. Approximately 10 minutes faster. So just based on their PBs, Vulajin would be expected to win here, similar to how Lucy was expected to win the last race, but it'll be very interesting to see what Kirefel can do with it. And Vulajin as well, of course. I mean, this is a difficult game. Anything can happen.
Yeah, Grim, let's say you have a 10-minute better time than your opponent. What kind of approach do you take? Do you try to take the approach of go for everything, or do you try to be safe and have a good tournament time? Because time is a factor.
Absolutely. I'd say it sort of depends on your attitudes and your goal for the tournament, because there's something to be said for if your goal is to just sort of win and get the most consistent best time that you can, it would make sense to take some of the safer strats, knowing that you can, in general, with your general movement skills and everything else and your consistency with some of the tricks, get a very, very good time. On the other hand, if you have practiced enough and you feel confident yourself in some of the trickier variations of some of the skips in this game and whatnot, you can get a better time than would ever be possible when you're doing the safe strats. So Vula, based on his answers and some of the spreadsheets we put together before this tournament, is going to be trying, given his skill. Oh, an unfortunate death by Vulajin early on. Nothing he can't recover from, but an unfortunate death. Vulajin's going to be going for a handful of riskier tactics to try to get his time down and not only to win his current race, but in order to get good races, good race times overall in this tournament to give him a better seed for the elimination round. So I think that's important. What's your impression on the same question you asked?
Yeah, so I guess, I mean, if I'm approaching this race here, it's more likely that I'd probably go for some riskier strats. I mean, this is the one of the few opportunities that you're going to be able to. The other person in our group, Elo Jiminy, I believe just bopped Vulajin actually, or very close to it. So,
did he? That's exciting.
So Vulajin and Elo very much close in this group. So if Vulajin was to try anything, it would be either against Kirefel or myself, I believe.
Because your time overall matters in these races, but also just your win-loss record matters more than anything else. Like you mentioned, just given their PBs, anything could happen in the race, but given their PBs, Vulajin knows that he likely has a little bit more of a buffer if he makes some mistakes to try to catch up, especially in some of the later sections. And then, like you said, if he was against another player very, very close to his skill level. So it will be interesting, not just in this race, but in a lot of other races, to see the sort of strats that people do. And it'll be especially interesting to me to see if people, or more accurately, I guess, how different people adapt their strategies as the tournament continues. Maybe they gain more confidence after doing one race or something like that. I think that's an interesting aspect of doing these tournaments as opposed to just speedrunning in general.
Yeah, for sure. And here we see Kirefel getting wall jump here as Vulajin actually missed the level up. We saw as Vulajin was coming down here, so a little bit unfortunate. Going to have to take some experience on the way up and level up, but not going to want to get too much experience.
That's generally not too big of an issue. Like Richard said, you usually level up on the way down, but if you level up on the way up, it's not too big a deal either. I should probably mention just in general with the commentary for this race, given that we just watched another one, we're probably going to be spending a little bit less time going over the details of the tricks, although we'll still, mention a little bit about what they're doing and their progress and whatnot, and a little bit more talking about, like we've been doing so far, the race as a whole and the different attitudes and techniques that different players can do.
Yeah, do you think that early death actually threw Vulajin off? Because I feel like, even just with kind of messing up his experience a little bit, maybe he's just a little shaken from having that early death.
It certainly could happen. I mean, it can happen to any runner. His execution since that death has certainly been just fine. I mean, it looked like he caught up based on the amount of time he lost to that death. Oh, and another
Ooh.
death there. So he's back to wall jump. So these
Caster curse here.
caster curse. It could be due to nerves. It could just be something that can unfortunately happen. You could be doing a completely normal stream on some day, and you could take a bunch of deaths, and it might have nothing to do with nerves. It sort of just depends on the player. I mean, I know that Vulajin certainly has a huge amount of speedrunning experience in this game and speedrunning in general. So I guess I don't know whether that would make him more nervous or less nervous, but he's certainly exposed to the sorts of things that can mess up runners like this.
Yeah, if you ever hear on Vulajin's stream, sometimes he has some very interesting noises when he dies in Ori. So he's probably having a little bit of a reaction right now to some of these early deaths. So let's see if he'll be able to kind of recuperate after this.
Mm-hmm. I think it's sort of interesting looking at this game as a whole as well, where it's sort of difficult for me to say, and I guess maybe this is a question I can pose to you. What is the hardest part of this speedrun? Actually, I'll sort of just ask you that question before giving my thoughts on it.
I think the hardest part about Ori is actually just getting your solid movement. Like it's not, well, you might think, getting Sorrow Bash is arguably the hardest singular thing that you can do in this game, but really it's just getting consistent movement across kind of everything, using your abilities effectively, being able to kind of have your fundamentals down, your dash gliding, all that.
Absolutely. And I think it's interesting to see, given the different skills that you pick up as the game progresses, like once you get bash, it's nice because you don't really need to worry about running into enemies as much anymore because you can bash through almost all of them. On the other hand, the game is going to throw harder enemies and more challenging situations at you to accommodate these new movement skills that you have. So like I think the Black Root Burrows is actually one of the trickier sections in the game because you don't really have much to work with. You just run around and you jump, and you need to make sure that you, on the one hand, you're trying to balance your desire as a speedrunner to just take these jumps as perfectly as you can, to not pull back in the air, to really try to get it, as optimally as you possibly can. But also knowing the fact that it might lose you way more time to slip into the spikes and die than to just wait the extra quarter second on a turn. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's something that, especially in a race setting, can kind of mess with you. And I think that sometimes overthinking these issues can be more of a problem than anything else. And that's where those early deaths, I can't read Vulajin's mind, but it might be affecting him.
Yeah, so here we see actually Vulajin, even having those couple deaths, still taking a pretty significant chunk off of Kirefel's lead, just kind of with a little bit slicker movement here through these sections in BRB.
Mm-hmm. I'll say one more thing. In terms of that catch up, most of this run, as you mentioned, comes down to your general movement strats and everything. But part of the amount of time that Vulajin has caught up to Kyre here is due to a handful of suboptimal cycles by Kyre. And to get optimal cycles in Black Root Burrows is not easy. If you watch some of the top runners, I mean, including Vulajin, it usually goes pretty consistently, so it can look easy. But I mean, it's just so easy. You slip off one time and it can just sort of mess up the whole thing.
Yeah.
I also noticed that Vulajin, earlier we talked just very briefly about the different strats, riskier versus safer, that different runners can take. Vulajin doesn't seem to be sort of taking the easy way out. Like I noticed there's a very minor little strat you can do to save like 2 seconds on some of the platforms in the dash room, and he went for it, and it would have been safer to carry the orb with him and lose like 2 seconds, but he didn't. So he doesn't seem to be too much altering his gameplay from what I've seen so far, and I think that's a good thing. It's always rough in a race when you die, but to some extent you have to sort of try to brush it off and continue because there's a lot of race left.
Yeah. And speaking of a lot of race left, here we see Kirefel making it through kind of what Vulajin's going through right now is Frankie Walk made it through very cleanly, also getting this third energy here as well.
Mhm. A good job by Kirefel so far, though. I mean, some unfortunate deaths by Vulajin, of course, but we shouldn't discount that Kirefel has had a relatively clean run so far. Unless I've missed something, I haven't seen any real bad, unfortunate deaths or any major mistakes or anything like that.
Yep, nothing so far, but you can just see with kind of the speed that Vulajin is killing all these brambles here a lot faster than what Kirefel was doing. So we might expect to see Vulajin catch up a little bit more here as he puts down a safety save.
And I think there's one thing that we didn't mention the last run. There's something you can do here called the early grotto cycle, where there's all these sort of rolling. Looks like a little death there by Kyre. Not too costly. Maybe I was mistaken. I thought that Vulajin was going to go for something called the fast grotto cycle, where you can kind of do some dashes and jumps very optimally to get inside these crushers a cycle early, which saves, I want to say, 8 seconds. But to get there is pretty precise. And there's also a possibility that you would accidentally kill yourself by getting just sort of pinched in the crushers on the early cycle. Looks like he just opted for the safe way out. Got a near perfect ghost door, though.
Yep, and so now they are kind of in the same corridor area with Kyre climbing up it. Vulajin taking a couple deaths on his way down, unfortunately, but not anything that he can't recover from here.
No, it's sort of like you don't want any unintended deaths, of course, but if you're going to die, that's one of the best places to do it. It loses you seconds as opposed to minutes. Meanwhile, on the right side of your screen, Kirefel's coming up to the grotto skip, this sort of precise wall jump. First try.
Very nicely done.
Very nicely done. There is a very slightly faster version of that trick, but I mean, first try, that's the important point there. And Vulajin quickly coming up to it. He's going to go out of his way first to grab an extra energy cell. I actually don't know whether these guys are going to be going for 5 energy or 4 energy once we get a little bit later in the run. Do you?
I do not know, actually.
I guess we'll find out when we get there. Vulajin also with the first try. That's very nice. It's not common in a race. You see both people get first try grotto skip. It's a trick that's sort of easy enough that it's really, really easy to mess up.
Yeah, so Kyre almost accidentally, I think many Ori runners have done this, almost accidentally changing difficulty there in your menuing.
It's a risk when you're trying to do this very, very fast menuing. And Vula continues to close the gap here. He's just very, very close behind. He's going to be skipping a cutscene here. Almost did the same thing. And then he's going to be grabbing the water vein, and he'll be pretty close behind Kirefel coming up here.
Yep, so now as we are going to see both players come up to Ginso here, very difficult section of the game with a lot of different platforming that you have to do without bash because you get it while you're in there. So this is kind of where we might see Vulajin with his clean movement make up some more time on Kyre.
Absolutely. We're approaching Ginso, and we can talk a little bit more about that. We mentioned some of the aspects of that dungeon last run, some of the tricks that come up, and we can run through them briefly again or to sort of comment as they come up. I'm sort of curious. I don't know if we explicitly talked about the stated goals of these two runners in this tournament. Do you want to take a second and talk about those? I mean, I can talk about them too.
Okay, yeah, I didn't have it pulled up, but
I did look them up before that.
Kyre, wanting to get consistently sub 40 in all skills, and also kind of after this tournament is done, try out some other categories in Ori.
Vulajin, by the way, to sidetrack the topic I just brought up, decided to take what is, in my opinion, an intelligent safety save at the Spirit Well since he sort of got stuck in the little rock and took 2 damage. It would have been very easy for him to die and lose a significant amount of time, so it was worth it to take the few seconds to make sure he restored his energy. And you can actually see now they're just about neck and neck. Kirefel just a few seconds ahead as they enter Ginso Tree. As you mentioned, the general movement and stuff helping Vulajin to catch up. We'll see how this first dungeon goes for both of these runners. But back to what we were just talking about, you mentioned Kirefel wanted to get sub 40 in the tournament, but I think you also just mentioned primarily he wanted to have fun with it.
Yeah,
which I think is a very, very good goal.
Especially with what's going on kind of within the community. The community has grown so much, so it's been pretty easy to be able to catch a stream of someone running this game over the last couple weeks, and so it's pretty easy to have a good time, get to know everyone in the community.
And with that, Vulajin has just barely pulled ahead. So he was able to close that gap. Back in the second room of Jinsu, he actually did something called, is it called portal hopping? Am I messing up the name there?
I'm not entirely sure, but it is some pretty precise movements, having to basically go back and forth, left and right, so that you can kind of jump upwards as you enter the screen there.
I've just gotten word it's called telehopping.
Telehopping.
Thank you from our behind-the-scenes crew. We're like a regular news station here. Vulajin coming up on this first mini-boss in Ginso, which I don't know if we explicitly said this last run. It's an interesting part because it's one of the very few RNG-dependent sections of this run. I think one of the very appealing parts of the speedrun, despite its difficulty, is that it is almost entirely based on player skill. There is just about no RNG whatsoever, which makes it very consistent. This mini boss is an exception. It can spawn in one of 5 locations in the room, and it can spawn with either a short delay between locations or a little bit longer delay. So the worst possible RNG would have it spawn sort of in a bunch of different locations that are far apart with a bunch of long delays, whereas the best possible RNG has it spawn very quickly in similar locations, so you can just get as many shots on it as fast as you possibly can.
Yeah, the right side location is very unfortunate if you ever happen to get that.
Mm-hmm. There's also an interesting thing where even though it is random, again, Vulajin with a near perfect ghost door there, an interesting aspect of that last boss fight is that there's actually a 1-frame little tell. You can sort of, if you know what to look for, you can sometimes see the boss flash for 1 frame where it's about to appear. So if it looks like, I think I actually saw Vulajin do it in his fight. If you were to go back and watch this and you think that Vulajin has some sort of psychic abilities for knowing that the boss is going to spawn on the right side, it's because he was able to look and see the little flash coming up.
Yep, and so here we see Kyre getting bashed, and Vulajin is putting it to good use right now as he goes for key dupes here. So we'll see how Vulajin does with that.
Key dupe is another aspect. I want to say in the last race between Lucy and Riven, both of them got it relatively cleanly. But the trick is actually pretty difficult because you have to kill yourself in a rather precise location in the spikes in order to properly duplicate the keys. Otherwise, you just die, actually, and you have to do it again.
It's like Vulajin taking his sweet time here.
Mm-hmm. You do have to be in the very, very far right side of those spikes, but he was able to get his key dupe, he was able to get his rekindle off, and so he will be safely continuing on. In just a moment, you'll see him face the second mini-boss in this first dungeon. Kirefel not far behind, going for his same key dupe. Looks like he got it as well. Again, both of them taking it a little bit slowly, a little bit safely, but you lose way more time by failing the trick too far away from the door than you do by taking an extra few seconds to line up your intentional death there.
Yep, and here we see Vulajin getting all this XP, getting ready for core skip here.
That was a new strat to get that energy. I've never seen that before. Nice job, Vulajin.
And here we see the ghost door from Kirefel as well.
Mm-hmm. Vulajin heading up towards the core skip, which you mentioned last run. It's a way to... Ooh. Oh boy, and the Frankie stomped him a little bit. Again, not too costly of a death. That's why you make the safety save there. The safety save costs you nothing because you're about to level up and get your energy back anyway. And it doesn't cost you anything in terms of energy. It also doesn't cost you anything in terms of time. Oh, another unfortunate mistake there. So now Vulajin's going to be trying to kill himself again as fast as possible in order to give it another shot, and that sort of ties them up again. We'll see how it goes for Kirefel.
Yeah, Kirefel now in the same room, just slightly underneath where Vulajin is. Looks like having also a little bit of trouble himself with his course. It might be prudent for him to just kind of just reset here, take a death and go back up, but it looks like...
I wonder if he was low on experience, actually, saw him kill that frog and get XP. I don't know if that was intentional to get experience or just sort of the frog happened to die.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if he got enough from the mini-boss, but we'll see.
Looks like he got it as well. So Vulajin's still a little bit ahead. Both of these guys starting up the water escape.
Yeah, again, that kill was actually really scary from Kirefel because he was so far to the left, but he dashed forward so that the XP could destroy the right side.
I think sort of a general note about this run, is what I notice is in those core skips that both of them just did, is that there's a lot of adaptation for as little RNG as there is in this run. In theory, you just do exactly the same thing every time, maybe even to a greater degree than a lot of other speed games. But given how precise it is and how you miss a little wall jump in a different way, or maybe you bash just at slightly the wrong angle or something like that, it's important to be able to adapt and know what the map around you looks like, maybe where a backup health is, maybe where backup energy is if you need to make a safety save. And I think that it's sort of cool to see. The more experience the runner gets, sort of the fewer mistakes they make, and they tend to be more consistent. But it's sort of cool because they also gain more knowledge about any potential backups. And I think that's especially cool in a race setting where you can't just reset if you have a bad time and you're going for a PB. You really need to learn how to adapt to the game around you. I think that's, I guess, one of the more interesting aspects of speedrunning in general.
Yeah, having map knowledge in this game is extremely important, as you said, and even just kind of knowing where you should be kind of placing all of your shots and where you're supposed to be standing is also really, really important. It was a slight opportunity for Vulajin to do a damage boost strat coming up to Stomp here, but decided not to. Again, it's a lot of small things that could just add up over time. Kirefel actually missing this bash up here to the log. So just as minor optimizations like that, you see players either make or don't make, and throughout the course of a run, that could make up the difference of many minutes.
Vulajin on the left side of your screen is quickly coming up to Drainless, or Brainless as we call it with the new strat. Brainless because this trick used to be frame perfect, actually, when it was first discovered. Then we found a way to make it not frame perfect, but still failable. Now we found a way that is still failable, but it's harder to fail, I suppose. But he got it very cleanly. Kirefel is going to be coming up to it just very, very shortly as well. And Vulajin, now that he has Bash and Dash, and he's going to be getting Charge Flame soon, and he's has his energy and everything, he's going to start being able to really fly through this game, and that's going to become especially apparent once he gets into Valley of the Wind and gets Feather, and more importantly, he's going to be getting Charge Dash, which is going to just break everything.
More importantly, we have a cutscene skip that might happen here. Unfortunately, I think Vulajin aiming his bash a little bit too high there.
As we mentioned briefly last run, that is a rather precise cutscene skip. There's like a very, very thin invisible cutscene trigger. On the right side, Kirefel died, but you make a safety save for exactly that reason. It's pretty easy to accidentally hit these spikes here, so that death cost him almost no time loss at all.
Yeah, maybe just like a couple
safety
seconds.
Save. Yeah, if that. It's very, very short. We have the speedrun police coming out of your microphone. They're angry at us for some reason.
Vulajin is going a little bit too fast here, unfortunately. So they're gonna try to catch him.
Mm-hmm. Looks like Vulajin is going for the extra energy cell. Caught him
as he takes a death there.
Right, the spikes at the bottom of this. I'm sorry, I interrupted you a little. The spikes at the bottom of that corridor are insta kill, and so you have to try to use that spider's projectile in order to get around the side of it without hitting the spikes. Thankfully, you do have a safety save right next to it, so if you die, it's not too costly. But of course, any unintended death loses you time. And Vulajin does have a stated goal of coming way back to that topic that I interrupted before. Vulajin's one of his stated goals was to try to get, I think, a top 8 time, if I'm remembering that correctly. Maybe I'm thinking of another runner, but he certainly is he has high aspirations for this tournament, and I mean, he absolutely has the skill to do it.
Yeah, meanwhile, Kyer here also having a little bit of difficulty getting this 5th energy, but managing to make it through. And going into this cutscene skip here. So, actually, interesting thing about the world of Ori routing is we used to not skip this cutscene by rekindling there, and eventually someone just found out, hey, this is 2 seconds faster if we do this. So, and that was very recent too. That was not even like a month or 2 ago.
I think it's kind of cool too, because remember that they're running on the definitive edition of this game, which everyone runs on now, but the vanilla version was out for a year and it had a very heavy active speedrunning community as well. And so it's sort of cool for me, especially as one of the people who's been around since nearly the beginning. Vulajin has been around since literally the beginning of this game's speedrunning history. It's kind of cool to see which tricks transform over time, not only just as new strats are found, but as or I should say, given the changes with Definitive Edition, because a lot of the tricks haven't changed at all, but a lot of them have, and I think that's kind of cool to see. There's too many details to go through here. Vulajin is going for fast stomp list.
And it looks like he's his bass must have been a little bit off there, unfortunately.
It looked pretty good to me. I'm actually surprised that didn't work. So because of that, he'll just have to take the time loss to go back, and then he'll just go and stomp the rock normally. Kirefel, I don't believe is going to go for fast stomp list. We'll see if he does when he gets there, but I don't think he's going to be doing that.
And so since Kyre's not doing that, you know, maybe giving him a little bit more of a chance to catch up since Vulajin missed the trick there.
Absolutely. So just like in the last run, this is where the run's really going to pick up, because momentarily, actually I missed, maybe Vulajin already made his save point, but either he just got it or he's about to get it. The skill charge dash, which is going to let him break the game in a variety of ways. Kirefel had the death of that bird, but he made a safety save for precisely that reason.
Very nice safety save there.
For anyone who might not be aware, this little barricade that he's trying to break off to the right, you're not meant to be able to break until quite a bit later in the run, after you have charge jump, and you can sort of cling to the wall and break it that way, but you can break it using the shockwave from stomp. There it is.
Yep.
Bird Bro not being his little best friend there. Meanwhile, Vulajin, well on his way, already did a rocket jump, and now he's on to Sorrow Bash. As we mentioned, one of the sort of rites of passage of running Ori. There's no way around it, although there are variations. When he gets in there, his perilous journey is just beginning, because he's going to want to be very careful with his energy throughout this whole section in order to be able to level up where he wants to, do charge dashes and rocket jumps where he wants to. Looks like he's, oh no, I was going to say that he wasn't going to opt for the safety save, but he did. He made a little save on the far side of that laser. The reason being that this section is just dangerous for a whole bunch of reasons. First and foremost, you can kill yourself. There's 4 damage spikes everywhere. There's frogs that snipe you. It can just be a whole very dangerous situation. Sort of more dangerously, you have to juggle this frog upwards, which you'll be seeing Vulajin do just in a moment.
Yeah, we saw Vulajin accidentally juggle the frog down, falling down the pit there. So Vulajin had to take a death to respawn the frog. And so here we see him bringing the frog up here, going to be using the frog's projectile to get rid of the rocks up here. And we're going to see a very tight rocket jump through the lasers here.
Almost got it. It just means he has to float up through this corridor normally. Vulajin tried to do a rocket jump to fly all the way up through this area. Quite a bit faster than floating up, of course.
See Vulajin's mouse here. Not something that you'll see very often from Vulajin, being a controller player, as we briefly mentioned.
Should we talk about that distinction between controller and KBM? I think it's something that might be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about it. There's, you can actually see Vulajin using his mouse cursor here. Being able to menu with your mouse is very convenient in this game, very quick, instead of having to use your controller to kind of go through it. But the menuing is not the only thing. With keyboard and mouse, there's some binds that you can do to make everything go by just a little bit faster. You know, you can do double bashes pretty easily with mouse.
Vulajin got the nice ghost door there. Remember that all those spikes will insta kill him, and in Sorrow Pass, your deaths tend to be pretty costly, especially depending on how many safety saves you make. Like, remember that when Vulajin tried to do frog juggle, he accidentally threw the frog off a cliff for a second. Without his safety save, he would have gone all the way back to Sorrow Bash. So it's quite costly. Sort of the definition of risk versus reward. On the right side of your screen, Kirefel is currently trying Sorrow Bash. It's a trick that, again, like most speedrunning tricks, I suppose, probably looks easy if you get it first try, but it really is pretty precise. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. You can kill yourself, you can kill the bird, you can just have him be mispositioned, you can miss your bashes and fall. A lot of different things can go wrong. Looks like he's in there now, though. We'll see if he opts for the safety save as well. My assumption would be that he would. Yep, he's not only going to make the safety save, he's going to go out of his way to get an extra energy to make sure that he has enough energy for everything he has to do in this section.
Yeah, so with him taking Oof. Vulajin with a pretty unfortunate death there.
Hmm. This is another very rough section. I think just everything, not only Sorrow Pass itself, but a lot of things surrounding Sorrow Pass are just really brutal. They wouldn't be so brutal, except that your energy management is so important, excuse me, in this run. That Vulajin's trying to make, I hesitate to even say as few safety saves as possible. He basically can't make any more safety saves. You know, he has basically no leeway in what he's doing. Maybe he can make one, but doing so would sacrifice the energy he has to do different tricks like these charge dashes into stomp cancels and whatever else. So if he runs out of energy prematurely, what did I say?
Stomp cancels and bash cancels.
Oh yeah. Vulajin trying to do another rocket jump there as well, but he got the little backup. That's a good adaptation by him as well. If you run out of energy prematurely, it really costs you in this run, and that becomes even more apparent just the better and better you get at this game.
Yeah. Meanwhile, we see Kyre here coming up to Sunstone.
Mm-hmm. He'll be up there soon. He'll be he's charging up a charge dash on the way up so he can get enough energy to level up. Necessary to have enough energy to do everything he wants to do. Meanwhile, Vulajin kind of flying through Misty Woods as fast as he possibly can. He's fast on his way to climb, which is an ability that, well, he needs because of the category, but he won't actually be using very much, mostly because there are so many other interesting ways to get the kind of vertical movement that you need, like rocket jumping, for example.
Yeah, with climb, you really kind of use it if you're being careful. In the actual just casual playthrough of the game, you use it quite a lot in the upcoming sections in Misty, but you really want to be moving as fast as possible when you're in a speed run.
Absolutely. I think we mentioned it last run too, but this is really a pretty difficult speed run, and so I don't think that should sort of be ignored in the way that a lot of these precise movements are done. You're kind of trying to dodge lasers and spikes and everything else. Kirefel's quickly approaching charge jump, then he's going to be on his way to Misty Woods as well. Meanwhile, Vulajin's just trying to get out of Misty Woods as fast as he possibly can.
Yeah, Misty known for being a very grueling part. It's a very long kind of section that you have to go through, very linear, but still a lot of places where there's the opportunity to get caught by spikes and take deaths.
That's a nice little rocket jump that Vulajin did there. It's always interesting to me, as well too, as someone who's more familiar with this speedrun, to sort of see. We talked again early in the run about the different strats that people can do, whether they're doing fast stompless or normal stompless, or, well, no, fast stompless or you're stomping the rock. I guess those are basically the possibilities. But there's so many little micro optimizations, and I think one of the most fascinating things to me is that watching this game over time, it's been really cool to see the strats that people can come up with, especially when we had all previously assumed that we knew the fastest way to do it. Like, if Hetfield didn't exist, I wouldn't think it would be possible to get a 3109 in this game. You would look at a run like Hydra's or Sigma's or something and say, well, yeah, you could shave some time off of it, but not that much. It was near perfect. Even if you shaved out the deaths and stuff, it wouldn't be that time. And so it's incredible to see the sort of little micro optimizations, cutting corners in just the right way, charge dashing into enemies the moment you can, doing stomp cancels everywhere you can. It's just very, very, I think, cool to see. This game done well is sort of like a dance. You're just sort of dancing through this whole world using every single skill in your arsenal.
Yeah, especially with someone like Het, he is someone that has worked on tasks for other games, so he kind of knows how to get into the nitty-gritty, kind of find all of those small optimizations.
Absolutely.
And here we see Vulajin. Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Vulajin is fast on his way to the final skill of the game called Light Burst. We usually just call it Light Grenade. What the skill is a little light grenade. You can sort of use an energy to throw a little light ball. It can do damage to enemies, and I think you can bash off of it. It's honestly been a very long time. I haven't used the skill since my casual playthrough, since it's not useful for the speedrun in any way.
Yeah, there used to be a little, there's a slowdown at the cutscene trigger here, and so you'll see people dash glide across it. People used to throw a grenade and bash off of it. So that used to be one use of it, but now you don't really see that anymore.
So Vulajin has his his light burst, his light grenade skill, and so now he's going to be heading over to Mount Horu. But to get there, the fastest route is to go to a spirit well and teleport to another spirit well closer to his goal.
Yeah, teleporting was something that, you know, was added into this game and made kind of the routing in it a lot more interesting.
Oh, absolutely. It's really interesting. I mean, the difference between Definitive Edition and the vanilla version. In vanilla, it was still a challenging speed game in a lot of the same reasons that Definitive Edition is challenging. You still are trying to cut corners and do mashes at the perfect angle, and you're trying to gamble how much health should I take and everything else. But the addition of dash just makes this game so much faster. It is just sort of absurd. You know, you go back and watch a vanilla speedrun, it looks slow in comparison.
Yeah, it's not.
And I just think that's really interesting.
It's not every day you see a game add more content and actually make the game faster.
Yep. That's sort of funny. The all cells time, even though there are more cells than the vanilla version, is like 10 minutes faster or something like that. It's just, you know, ridiculous just because dash exists. Vulajin's quick on his way to Mount Horu, where he gets to do the infamous door warp trick that we saw. Yep. That we saw Lucy and Riva do in the last run. It's a frame perfect trick where he's trying to press up or W or whatever it might be on KBM. I don't actually know whether he's using a controller right now or a keyboard mouse, since he does play hybrid. But regardless, he's trying to enter the door on the same frame that the game loads in. We'll see how many tries it takes him. Kirefel is moving through Misty Woods. He's coming out the far side, so his next destination is going to take a teleport close to Blackroot Burr. Looks like Vulajin got it third try. That's, of course, you want it first try, but that is perfectly respectable.
Yeah, for
Good
sure.
job, Vula.
So Vulajin here on track to get a sub 40 time in this race. Looks like.
Absolutely. The real question is he going to go for fish strats? I think that's going to be the question for every single race.
Yeah.
For anyone who might not have been here last race or who missed it, fish strats is this thing you can do in the escape sequence where you bash a fish out of the water and then try to manipulate it into a position where you can do a rocket jump, and it saves, I think, 2 seconds optimally.
Yes, it does.
At the risk of jumping into fire and killing yourself and losing however long it takes to get through the entire escape sequence. There's also the swag aspect. He is going for it. Fingers crossed. Let's see how it goes. He has to get the fish far enough over to the right that he can do a rocket jump, but not so far that he runs into lava. Beautiful.
Nicely done.
Got the fish straps, which saves 7 hours off his time, so he's going to be at about something a little under -6 hours for his speed run.
-6 hours. That's pretty good.
Yep.
Kaya here,
good race time.
Getting the cutscene skip here.
Mm-hmm.
Now this cutscene actually kind of a very long cutscene, so it's something that you definitely want to skip. But with a couple enemies like the bird there, it's kind of scary if you kind of get caught and move a little bit too far to the left.
This whole game is scary. These guys make it look easy. Even the less experienced runners make it look easy.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of runners learn this game for the 12-hour challenge, getting through Sorrow Pass in a couple of hours, just from like watching tutorial. It's pretty insane considering how difficult the strats like you see in this game.
Absolutely. Vulajin is just about done with his run here. His timer's going to stop as soon as Naru, this character who is important, but this important character, but not for the speed run. You get control of her for just a few seconds, and then his timer's going to stop as soon as he loses control and passes a tree. Looks like he's going to be getting the sub 39.
Kaya, unfortunately, taking a death there, trying to get up from the boulder escape kind of section there. Very, very kind of difficult to get over that boulder, but there is a kind of safe strat that you can do. Is if you don't make it, you can go on the right side and just charge jump upwards. Thank you, Trojan dude, for that tip. But that is a pretty safe strat that you can do in case you don't get your initial jump up over the boulder before it rolls over to you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You can just jump straight out there, but it's a little bit precise. over on the left side of your screen again, Vulajin, whose run is now over, did another very important strat, saves somewhere around 50 years on the run. If you jump with Naru, it's actually slower. But I think it's sort of funny just knowing who Vulajin is. I can sort of imagine his mindset thinking, what's a few more seconds, jumping with Naru at the end.
Imagine if that actually ruins his seating for later on.
Oh
That would
boy.
be a little bit unfortunate.
It would be
Kyre.
unfortunate. Able to get out of the mess of brambles there. In that little section, it's sort of unfortunate. You aren't really supposed to hit it, but if you do, you try to bash out of it, and you tend to latch onto one of the brambles that's right in the middle, and you just sort of take damage. Anyway, so Vulajin with a 38.57. I'm sure he'll be wanting to improve that, but a very, very respectable time. He recovered, I think, very, very well from his early mistakes. He didn't, go too easy on some of the strats. He went for stomp cancels. He went for fast stompless. He really, didn't look like it. He let it get to his head too much, and I think that is worthy of applause right there. Kirefel is entering Mount Horror right now. The game's going to autosave after this little mini cutscene that plays.
We actually saw him pause very briefly right before entering, and so if you do that and leave, you actually the autosave does not trigger, so you actually have to start over again from your previous save.
Did not know that.
Luckily, he did not do that.
Mm-hmm. Is that another third try, I think?
Yeah, very nice door warp there from Kyre. Mm-hmm. Only one more door warp than what Hetfield got, so, pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. He'll be starting his final escape sequence here as well. We'll see if he goes for fist strats.
Don't believe
Remember that
I would go for that.
Remember that despite our jokes, it actually doesn't save very much time at all. But it is a legitimate time save. It's just pretty risky, but you get the swag points, and that's worth some time.
Yeah, and that's not the only scary portion of the escape. There is some pretty precise kind of movement that you had to have through here. The fire does catch up to you sometimes, and you really don't want to get caught by anything here.
Mm-hmm. I think it's sort of important to note I think it's helpful sometimes when you watch these speedruns, especially if you're really sort of immersed in the speedrun community, you can forget what it felt like to play this game casually and sort of remember, looks like he's opting to not go for fist strats, by the way, a completely respectable, intelligent decision there to just sort of finish off his race. It's sort of interesting to think about these games from a casual perspective and think, I know when I did my casual playthrough of Ori, even if I just isolate like the final escape sequence, I must have died 100 times, and that's got to be true of everyone. And so I think it's sort of funny that we look at these and you sort of take for granted that they will get to fish strats and to be in a position to try it, but really even just getting there, navigating all of the fire, all of the projectiles, managing your energy to make sure that you have enough energy to break these barricades and stuff takes quite a lot of skill in itself.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think we have our second PB of the evening.
So, yeah, I believe Kirefel's PB is around a 44. So
it looks like he'll be getting a sub 44 here. So that's a PB from Rivid and a PB from Kirefel. That is just fantastic. This game is really difficult, and it becomes even more difficult when nerves are involved in doing a race, especially for like a tournament that's broadcast to probably more people than would ordinarily be watching you play Ori in the Blind Forest. So I think the nerves are an important factor, and so it's really, really cool to see people pull off, the best run they've ever done in this setting. Just very, very cool. It's encouraging.
Yeah, so Kirefel finishing up here. Let's just talk a little bit about the upcoming couple matches we have tonight. So besides the GDQ hotfix that's happening tomorrow, we have Staffu versus Chicken Supreme coming up next, and then we have Hetfield himself versus Mr. Asmus coming up tonight. So that is going to be a couple exciting matchups right there.
Absolutely. For anyone who enjoyed that race and the one before this, we have 2 more tonight, and then tomorrow we've got, oh my goodness, all kinds of Ori races for hours and hours. It'll be a fun time for the world of Ori speedrunning. So I think that'll about do it for this race and for my commentary. I think that I saw that you were going to stick around for the next one. Is that
I
accurate?
will be restreaming actually the next one.
Okay. Okay. Well, we've got some different commentators coming up.
Sigma and J Hobbs.
Oh,
I
those will
believe
be.
J Hobbs is back on commentary after kind of resolving some of the things that he was going to do for the hot fix tomorrow.
Well, you guys are in for a treat. Never mind Ori itself. Hobbs and Sigma are not only great Ori runners, but they're very cool people. I think they're very funny people, and they're most of all very good commentators.
Not as funny as Gromelios here. Of
Oh,
course.
please. Oh, please. I'm nothing compared to the legendary Richard. Plus, your friend, did you know that Richard bought us like all donuts like the last day of GDQ? He's like,
Those
yeah, I'm going to
donuts
buy
are really good.
like 1 billion donuts. Yeah, they were. I think it was about half my food for the week. Anyway, stick around if you want to see more Ori. I'll be getting off here, and then Richard will be getting off from the commentary as well. So good luck to the remaining racers and commentators.
Have a good night, everyone.
Yeah, I'll see you later, Richard. Bye.
Take it easy.